Awesome. So, guys, we're going to kick things off. I don't know, we call this Three Clubs Radio or what? All right. It's a real honor to be here with Hugo. Hugo, your second name is too difficult for me to pronounce, but I know there's math somewhere there.
Yeah. Make it Matheco. Matheco is fine.
Matheco is good.
Yes.
Awesome. Welcome to Kenya. Welcome to Web3 Clubs. This is the hub that we run and build from. Today is a special day. We're just having zero knowledge built on this knowledge exchange led by Nelly. She's your mathematics and zero knowledge here. And it's the first time actually doing a podcast or shooting an episode here. So it's a real honor to have you here. So this is a live audience. Some of them will have questions. We'll project our voices so they also can hear what we're talking about. Let me just do a brief introduction of you. It's a brief one that I'd like to just pick up from there. Hugo, from what I understand, you're from Sao Paulo, and you founder for Tools for E-commerce. And you're here on various missions, especially in Zanzibar, right? To talk to several people in the space and communities. So it's really good to have you here. I'd like to hear more about who you are and how you came about to running Tools for E-commerce.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me. So my first day, my first hour in Kenya was with you. My second day is also with you. So it's very iconic for me, and it means a lot. So and I'm very happy to be with what I consider my tribe, technologists, techno optimists, developers, builders. So I couldn't be in a better company. So I've been building and living in Brazil, mostly in São Paulo, for the past decade or so. My background is mostly in financial services, and then from financial services to technologies, then the combination of both gave fintechs as Web2, so I'm definitely the worst developer in the room, I'm more like sort of like a business builder. So I like to have this feeling of being surrounded by extremely bright people and good builders. And my past venture was a fintech between Mexico and Brazil that was orchestrating at the same time credit and payments. So it all started with the mission to start to help tech entrepreneurs to get access to money, to capital, because outside very few places in the world like Singapore or New York or London where access to capital is like abundant, and then at every corner street you can find a bank or you can find a funder. The reality for our world, like Brazil, Spanish-speaking Latin America, Africa, like a big part of Southeast Asia as well, there's just no money, right? So, but there are banks, but there's no money for technology. So the mission of my past 8 years was basically to find ways to connect pools of funding, and there are abundant pools of funding in the world, to the new economy. Because there are banks, but banks have been designed for the economy of the 19th and 20th century, like traditional economy, traditional collaterals. So the typical question is, do you have a car? Do you have an apartment? Do you own a car? Do you own an apartment? And I'm pretty sure that many people in this room don't have a car, don't have an apartment. I don't have a car, I don't have an apartment. So as a consequence, you just don't get any money for your business, right? But at the same time, you might have a lot of wealth, but your wealth is not necessarily your car or your apartment. Maybe it's your computer. Maybe it's in your computer. Maybe it's your code. Maybe it's your digital audience. So basically, I built a bank that was taking this into consideration to be able to fund entrepreneurs. And then two major things happened that I think were the kind of mental prototypes of Tools for the Commons. Number one was to team up with governments. So I grew up in a world where you can't do anything with governments. Governments are bad, evil, incompetent at the same time, and like very private sector oriented, very startup, we do our own things. And then I just realized that governments are just people, so it's not necessarily the best allies, but they can be allies, and in extraordinary times, governments can actually be very good business partners, and this is what happened during COVID. And during COVID, we had like a very interesting rescue financing program to finance small businesses, mostly digital small businesses. And we saw the central bank adapting very, very fast to the reality of the digital economy because it was contingency. Like companies had 40 days of cash. So I changed a bit my mind with dealing with governments. And then number two was Web3 and DeFi. So we built the first tokenized rails and TradFi DeFi rails for the internet and capital markets in Brazil. And with this, I said, okay, so maybe we can interconnect like traditional Web2 fintechs with governments and with DeFi protocols at the same time. But my business was and is still a financial business, so I have to deliver net interest margin, that's it. So I don't have to deliver like a new infrastructure and crypto. And at the same time, I was going through like a merger with an Indian payment company. So we basically merged, and then I went to the board. And then at the same time, in late 2023, I read a book from Balaji Srinivasan called The Network State. And this book basically explains how to build new cities and how to build new countries, like a startup and like a peer-to-peer crypto protocol. So you just take a computer, write a few lines of code, or program your functions, program your business rules, and then you find a piece of land, and then you negotiate with the government so that they recognize this, and you bundle all those three, and all of a sudden you've got your city-state that's programmable. I said, well, that rings a bell. I think I did something very similar for financial services, so why couldn't we do this? And then in early 2024, I came up with this playbook of basically how to build the core foundation layers, both at the digital infrastructure, legal wrappers and diplomatic wrappers, and then the apps, mostly for company management and governance and payments and crypto. And the combination of all those three is what we call our protocol, basically to build digital economic zones. We started with Zanzibar with a very interesting partnership, and now we are expanding beyond Zanzibar, hopefully in other places in Africa, in Latin America, and in Asia as well.
And then we'll talk about Zanzibar in depth, which I see as very interesting as well. But yeah, this on your background, do you have also, you say you have a background in investing, so were you an investor at some point?
Yeah, so I've been both a professional investor and individual investor. So professional investor, I worked with a few hedge funds, so very traditional London, New York hedge funds investing in big companies and then in mid-sized companies and then in small companies, and then with my past fintech A55 in micro enterprises, micro ventures, but really with an institutional mandate, so institutional funds. I've been investing a lot between 2021 and 2023, my own money in tech startups, mostly fintechs, and mostly in emerging markets, but like with a strong bias for Latin America. So that's been my investments, and now all my money, energy, and focus is into tools for the commons. I'm probably on hold for investments for 2 to 3 years. And if and when it takes off again, I'll definitely reconsider that.
So, because I'm trying to understand how you, in your previous one, how you came into network states. I mean, we read the Balaji book,
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to understand what foundations you had, especially in your thinking and philosophies, that made it so easy for you to move into this path. And also, that's one question, but also, had you done some crypto before all of this?
So I discovered crypto, so mostly Bitcoin and somehow Ethereum, but with a very naive approach in 2020, in 2014 and 2015, just to speculate a little bit my own money, like a few $1,000s, with ups and downs. Maybe I won money, maybe I lost money. It was very volatile. But for sure, I didn't get like a complete bull market. Actually, I was building my fintech during the bull market, so I had to redeem funds. So I invested in 15 and redeemed in early 17. So all the 17, I missed the 17 bull markets. I can't remember how I was 18, but I think it wasn't bad. But 17 was extraordinary.
17 was extraordinary.
And I missed this.
That was my first bull market.
Okay, so I never experienced a bull market in my life.
Wow.
Just bear markets in my life.
Some of these guys are on their fourth or something.
Okay.
In their fourth bear market.
I only know bear market. I never make money just riding away. So I'm a very unlucky person. If you believe in spirits or something like this, stay away from me because I'm a very unlucky person.
So some of them are teachers. Other
I think we are spoiled because we came in during the bull.
Yeah, yes. So some of them actually do the bull market, so things are easy.
Okay.
But for some of them, they've been through the trenches for once.
For me, it's all bad markets. Like if you want, sometimes I'm joking. Like when I go into an industry, this industry crashes. So. But now network state doesn't exist. There's no space to crash because it's zero rate. So
That's one.
Just is it phase 2? Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's come to the first time you read about network state.
Yeah.
Was reading Balaji's work the first time you were encountering the idea of a network state?
So like maybe it happened to you when you read the Bitcoin white paper, and there's a very interesting feeling of it's amazing, but you also feel very stupid of like, how couldn't I thought about it before? Because it's so obvious. But it's like a mental shift that you need to do. So, and mostly for me, like I love geopolitics. I studied philosophy, history, and geopolitics. And when I was a kid, I was drafting flags, and I was challenging my brother and mother and saying, okay, I know all the capitals in the world, like all the flags in the world. And I'm pretty sure that I know that Nairobi is the capital of Kenya since I'm 4 years old. It's like, so I love this, but I couldn't work in a startup that was related to geopolitics. The only way was government, and government sucks, So I had to build my business in finance. And I love finance, I love economics, but there's one thing I love more, which is anthropology, philosophy, and geopolitics. So to me, it was an amazing opportunity to get into business building, venture building in geopolitics, with my two other passions that are technology and finance at the same time. So there was like very fertile ground, and at the same time, there's like a financial component because it costs money to build a city, it costs money to build a country, and it takes a lot of technology as well. So how could we program a city, how could we program a country, and how could we use crypto? It's like decentralized peer-to-peer internet protocol with a set of commands and controls. So a mix of networks and software. And so we had like the future of money, the future of software, and the future of networks at the same time, wrapped, to build new cities and countries. So when I read Balaji's books, it was just a playbook to execute this. So this was the half full glass. Then there's also the half empty glass, which is, okay, but like clearly this guy doesn't understand anything about the real world, like real people having real problems, because like it's like there's a very San Francisco centric opportunity. Like the world starts in LA and ends in New York, and that's it. And that's not my reality. my reality is mostly Latin America, and I have like a decent empathy for Southeast Asia and Africa, and that's certainly not your reality either, right?
Yeah.
So what I love about the internet is not to go to the pub and tell your friends that you made a nice venture capital investment. What I love about the internet is to have in Brazil, in Kenya, like rooms and people like you. Like we could doing anything else, but we are here like building internet businesses and competing on a global basis and not asking for permission to build amazing solutions that can be immediately competitive financially and from a tech perspective. And then to me, the internet is an amazing opportunity, to overcome the zip code constraints. And that's what I love about this. So how could we build governance infrastructures that leverage the power of the internet and make it not like a shadow parallel system, of geeks in a room like this, but make it like a city, like a country, that's programmed so that everybody, even outside this room, like everybody in the district can actually leverage this. So that's why I jumped into it.
Yeah, so now I feel we're getting now into the network state, the big project.
Yeah.
So let me just, so two questions. What do you understand as network society?
Okay.
What's the end game here? Then later on, I'll ask, did it take for blockchain to happen, to come around, for this to be possible? Or is there a history also of other people attempting this, and how did that turn out? But for now, let's just try and understand, especially for the guys here, what's a network society?
So let's start with network society. So network society is basically a community of people, an alliance of people that share the same values and that are connected by a network. And to make it simple, let's call it the internet. So it can be information networks, it can be value networks, it can be both at the same time. But it basically means that you have a specific technology, information and all value related, that basically connect people around the same value and moral and social proposition. And that's a big difference with traditional societies that until the internet were mostly connected by geography. So typically like you were doing like a society, a community with your neighbors during millennia. And now I think religions somehow introduced that, or maybe you can be connected to other people because they are Muslims or Christians or Buddhists. So I think these were the first kind of very big networks. And now the internet is squaring this, and even outside religion. So you can agree on with the same like social frameworks, the same moral frameworks, the same religious frameworks, the same ecological frameworks, the same economic framework. And then with this, basically you create your social contract. And you basically bundle your social contracts through the power of networks. So that's the definition of a network society. And if we just stop at a network society, it could completely be a WhatsApp group. It could completely be a Discord group. So that would be a network society. And then with the transition and the shift between a network society and a network state is that basically you have a set of parameters, governance, controls, values, and commands that basically organize the collective intelligence and the collective values, and with some physical territories, which is the exact next step and last mile that I think make crypto like a necessary parameter to build the network state, but not a sufficient parameter. You need land, and you need diplomacy, and you need interoperability, on top of everything we discussed about social crypto and economic and finance crypto.
So the difference you say of a network society and a network state is the governance component?
Yeah, I would say there's three layers. So social and values are at the network society level. Then commands, controls, and treasuries at the network state level. And then like physical territories is at the, what we could call it like a charter city or a special economic zone level. And when you combine the three, you have your full stack of sovereignty. That's the way I think the next 1,000 countries will be built.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit taken. So a number of us are hearing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Simply put, are you saying I can decide to build my own country?
Yes.
My own state?
Yeah.
I think we talked about the civil law vis-a-vis criminal law,
yeah,
and what you're allowed to do by the host country,
yeah,
and what the host country still handles.
Yeah.
So maybe talk about those intricacies on the governance angle, and what that would take.
So yeah, I mean, the point of all this is to create startup countries. So if any one of you are into, if you believe that you are good managers and you are good leaders, mostly if you are good programmers at the same time, and if you like interacting with humans, with markets, with governments, you can certainly build your startup country. And the way it works is literally like crypto protocols. You have like layer 0, layer 1, layer 2. So layer 0, as we speak in 2025, is the host country. So it's typically a country that has a seat at the UN and that will host diplomatically the arrangements and the wrappers. So it's really inspired by China back in the 80s when Mao Zedong transitioned power to Deng Xiaoping. China was still very poor. To give you like a sense, in the early 1980s, a median African was 1.4 times richer than a median Chinese. In 2050, in 2025, a median Chinese is 7.5 richer than a median African. And there's only one reason for this. It's special economic zones. So it all started with Shenzhen. One country, two systems. China knew that with a communist economy, there was no way they could uplift the entire society. So they tested out with Shenzhen in the 80s. And then they started the market economy, like free market, to start getting into global supply chains, global manufacturing. And this would be the modern equivalence of layer 1s, So layer 0 at that time was China, layer 1, Shenzhen. Now, if we look at crypto zones, it would be layer 0, for instance, Honduras, or layer 0, Nigeria, layer 1, Prospera, or layer 1, Itana. And then we build the orchestration not only between layer 0 and layer 1, but also between layer 1 and layer 2. And then we connect network societies on top of this, so that if any of you want to build a country, let's say you love animist culture, let's say, and you want to build the animist state. So you could build the animist society that will be diplomatically recognized on top of an Itana or Prospera wrapper, because that's the constitutional gateway. And all this would also be constitutionally recognized by Nigeria or by Honduras. So what we do is to orchestrate those three layers to make sure that everything that's built is constitutional, it's legitimate, and is programmable, basically. So, and the industry is so small that at some point there will be tons of layer 0, 1, and 2, and there will be a hyper segmentation of the industry. Now it's very small. It's like I'm meeting the same people all over the world, which is a bad news. It's not a good news. And so hopefully we need to grow that cake. And when that cake will grow, some micro solutions would be very specific DeFi for layer 1 or layer 2 for network states. But that's the way we build this so far.
All right. What would you say would be the incentive for a country, this layer 0 country, to build a crypto state?
Yeah.
So there are many. What China is not that bad, but not that good either. So what we often forget is that most countries are small countries. So when we think about a country, most of the time we think, oh, it's China, it's the United States. Even Kenya, by any size, is a big country, but it's more the exception than the rule. Like a medium country is more like Hungary, Togo, Uganda. That would be like a medium country. A small country would be Seychelles, would be Vatican, and most countries are small countries. So most countries are somewhere between 500,000 and 10 million people. And I'm pretty sure that any good internet platform in Kenya already has more than 1 million customers. So, and there are maybe 50 or 100 sizable platforms in Kenya. So as an entrepreneur, it's absolutely feasible, to gather a community of 500,000 people, 1 million people. That's typically when you raise a Series A. Like 10 million people is when you raise a Series B. And there are probably 100 to 500 companies like this in Africa. So it means that it's feasible through the power of the internet and through the power of networks, to gather pretty easily, like a few million people around your idea, and to create this society. And this is very interesting for a host country, because as a host country, let's imagine you are Sierra Leone. There's no way you get 15 million people physically living in your country. And even if you do, it means probably either like a war somewhere, and you have like tons of refugees at the same time. So that's probably not the best way to have like a planned integration. And even if you do, that also comes with a huge investment. So you need to build houses and roads to these people, and you don't know how your payback will look like as a country. So that's why digital economic zones are very interesting, because you can get all of a sudden a few million users, paying taxes, residents, because we have revenue shares, zero investment. So it's just capital, just political capital, but no hard investment, no roads, no hospitals, nothing like this. Just a lease of sovereignty. And at the same time, that's also a way to reclaim digital autonomy. So what we teach most countries is that they are modern digital hostages. So they're not sovereign at all. They are hostages of mostly US big techs. And most public services, I need to study more Kenya, but I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of Kenyan public services run on Google Cloud or AWS. And with those techs, there's something called the Cloud Act. Things from 2017, I think. And what the Cloud Act says is that if either Congress or the American president issues an executive order, they can open the data backdoor of every company or government that runs on top of a US cloud. So it means that all of your data, there are potential, even public data, even like your name, your surname, the name of your children, your social security, health, all this is at one executive order away to be shipped straight to the United States. And in the worst scenario, let's say the US covenants Kenya to do something for their diplomacy, and let's say mostly in a year like this, like with Trump administration, and then let's say Kenya says no. Not only they can trigger the backdoors, but they can shut down the internet, just pressing a button. And all of Kenya, it's true for Brazil, and it's true for all countries but China and the US, they all go back to the Stone Age from a sovereignty perspective. Wow. So that's why we have this kind of national security discussion, and we say, hey, you need to run on DPN. And I know you have like DPN specialists here. So build your DPN, register like DPN infrastructures, mostly at the cloud level and network level, into the constitution. And that's going to be the parallel state. And you're going to run your economic zone on top of this. So you reclaim sovereignty and you make tons of money with taxes. So that's what we push to government.
Okay. And what does this sovereignty look like? What are the limits? And maybe talk about what tools for the commons really is involved in the day-to-day, helping structure and helping people want to build startup states. Are you dealing mostly with the builds, the tools, the tooling, or are you also dealing with the legal and also having conversations with the host countries on behalf of these people?
So we mostly do diplomacy, legal, and technology. So diplomacy is what I spend a lot of my time with. So like shaking hands with governments, teaching this with governments. So I mean, most of you get it very easily, but imagine like a bureaucrat. So it's hard to explain this to bureaucrats. So a lot of my time is to explain this to bureaucrats to get those deals done. And at the sovereignty level, so we connect third-party DPINs. So we got into all this on day zero through like a DPIN partnership with the threefold grid. That's actually in that context that I met with Ochi in the first place. So we plug third-party DPINs. We don't want to reinvent the wheel and rebuild every single technology in the world. I think we're much better at assembling what works already. So we plug third-party DPINs. We arrange governance to make sure that those networks can guarantee like a secure and competitive infrastructure to run software and run AI and run data, like solid data infrastructure. Then we have legal, so a lot of lawyers, and lawyers basically drafting new regs, drafting new constitutions, drafting and structuring public-private partnerships. And on top of this, we build applications. So applications are mostly software orchestration that orchestrate both Web 2 and Web 3. So Web 2 can be as simple as an ERP, like invoice management system, tax management system, company management system, supplier, customer management system in the same repository. And then also connecting this with payments. It can be Web 2 payments, but also Web 3 payments. So we work a lot with DeFi and TradFi DeFi to make sure that, let's say you have a special zone in Togo, and then you want to issue an invoice to a Russian counterparty, and you want to issue it in reais paid with PIX, and so it's the Brazilian UPI. We make sure that all this is possible in the same operating system. And or let's say that you are a Kenyan citizen that is a Nigeria resident, and you want to be part of and you want to be part of a special zone, then we make sure that from a fiscal perspective, tax perspective, residency perspective, everything is set, done, orchestrated, and that you can transfer easily your residency, you can transfer wherever applicable your taxes, and even at some point your passport. So that's the sovereignty piece that we do.
Would you say the global south is easier to launch network states in the global south than
probably not easier, but that's a bigger driver for me. Because I think that for 3 centuries now, let's call it the global south. I like it more to call it the ascending world. But let's call it the global south, has been importing governance. So, like if we look at our monetary notes, if we look at our bills, if we look at our states, and if we look at our flags, you can look at the Kenyan flag or Brazilian flag or Kenyan states or Brazilian state. It's pretty much a copycat of France or the UK like 300 years ago. So the same kind of Rousseau, Montesquieu-ish kind of governance with the same kind of post-Bretton Woods economic policies without the money printing power. So importing like the state structures, and state structures have been developed in a very, very specific way. So like with existing nations, with existing certain cultural unicity, that, and like Africa has been
prototype in Berlin in 1884, with straight lines and with unions of tribes and with no pre-existing governance that
would make it absolutely clear that a Western state would be like the best governance to ignite value. And when we look at the history of Africa, it hasn't been the case. There was like ample prosperity before the nation state. So I think the nation state and the Western governance has failed Africa overall. It didn't bring prosperity to the same degree it did like in Shenzhen, in Shanghai, in Dubai. And for me, the reason is not geography, is not culture, it's purely governance. Because to create abundance, you basically need to be able to trade your goods and your services and to sell it, with a high value added. So you need to retain value for whatever you offer to your counterparty. And both the state and market mechanisms haven't prototyped that. So I think states are fragile in Africa. It's true for like a big part of Latin America. I don't think it's the absolute and best repository of trust overall. I don't think it provides a clear, predictability, never what can happen. And on the monetary side, it's even worse. Like 95% of currencies in LATAM, in Africa, structurally depreciate against the US dollar. So how can you make a living, like a good living in the US and the UK when you come to Kenya? Like when just paying your metro or cab ticket is like costs you like 10 times of the amount that you have here. It just doesn't make sense. So I think we need like a rebalance, like to equalize what a good, a service, a product is, like to share the same layer. And that's why I love about the internet, because we can equalize this and rebalance the terms of trade. And I think that digital economic zones can actually do this. So that's why I'm more interested about the global south, because I think the global south has the opportunity to leapfrog. So instead of importing monetary policies and importing nation-state governance, I think we have the opportunity to prototype monetary policies. Is it mine? Sorry. So I think we have the opportunity to prototype monetary policies and prototype network state governance, and not only benefit for this to create like a shared value and shared wealth, but also export it to the rest of the world. And it's just a matter of time before like a lot of countries in Europe or even the US like hit the wall. Like it's clear, like you look at value for money, like value of public services is crashing, and the cost of like a poor service is and debt is increasing a lot. So I think that there's a way to basically sell this and make a lot of money basically, so that the entire world like purchase like a Kenyan prototype governance.
I like the idea of startups on things like this, because you're able to experiment on things in a limited capacity or in a limited domain, and reduce surface area for negative impact in case of the experiment goes haywire or something. As compared to making experiments or running a country as a startup. It makes sense to just experiment it. If it fails, iterate quick and move on. So I guess what I can ask is, where does blockchain fit in, and why is it so important for this?
More than blockchain, I think it's the internet. So blockchain is the next frontier of the internet, and let's call it, that's the internet of values. So blockchain is a kind of internet that is extremely relevant for a state, because a state, different from a newspaper, is not about, it's not only about information, it's a lot about the values. So when you have a state, when you have like a police, is because you want a custodian of your values. When you have a pension fund or when you have public schooling, is because you want a custodian of your shared values. And because Web3 and blockchains are the internet of values, you can have your what you trust in, what you value, what you believe, what you create. That's the custodian beyond information. And that's what a state should be doing. So that's why blockchain is the best technology to basically complement or substitute what traditional analog states are in terms of value-based governance networks. And it's so relevant also because of language. So first, technology. So like as a custodian, it's a stronger custodian of shared values. And it's also like a better shared language. So, for instance, I'll take the Brazilian example. I don't have the exact Kenyan. I think I have a good guesstimate for Kenya, but maybe you can correct me. I'll give you Brazilian numbers. In Brazil, half of the population is illiterate, which means that half of the population cannot properly read and write an official document in Portuguese. So de facto, half of the population, so we are talking about 100 million people out of 200 million people, so twice the population of Kenya is excluded from engaging formally with the state. And that's why, for instance, when you have elections in Brazil, you don't have like a paper with the name of the president because half of the population cannot read that piece of paper. So that's why you have a color with a number to vote for the president. So it means that you exclude from civil society half of your population. But digital penetration is at 94%. So 94% of Brazilians have a smartphone, are connected into the internet, and they know exactly how Instagram and WhatsApp and Facebook and TikTok work. So if you take like an average grandmother in Brazil, she doesn't know how to read like a newspaper. She cannot read like an official note from the government, but she can completely make an instant payment on WhatsApp to pay, for a small service to her neighbor. So what does it mean? It means that the new literacy is the internet, and everybody speaks the internet, right? And I would shoot that for Kenya, it's somewhere between 40 and 70%. That would be my guesstimate. So probably in Kenya it's at literacy level, but in many countries, like people speak much more the internet than the nation state. So if all of a sudden we have like an entire society of 8 billion people, let's say with an internet literacy of 6.5 billion out of 8 that speak the same language, then they can interact in their own state. And that becomes the new common denominator. It's not your zip code. It's not whether you had like a formal English, Portuguese, French, Arabic education. Just like, can you interact with the line of code and with the smartphone? And that's it. And you can create a new society with this. So this, in terms of easy UX and very low barrier to entry, coupled with the Internet of Values, is what I think this bundling is very powerful to build new governance systems.
So let's go to some examples of network states that have rolled out or are starting to roll out. I was reading about, is it TftC?
Yeah.
TftC is interesting. So they're experimenting governance with blockchain and AI.
Yeah.
So how are you guys working together? And, how's it going so far?
Yeah, correct. So for us, this what we call pop-up cities are kind of our marketing. So that's a way to create awareness. That's a way to have people meeting. That's a way to have people collaborating. And that's a way to micro-prototype some interesting collaborations for a community or for a city, for instance. So TftC was a month ago in the south of Brazil, in Florianopolis. It's one of the 5 pop-up cities I've been organizing. So it's like 3 now in Africa and 2 in Latin America, and I'm organizing a 3rd one in Latin America. And that's basically a month-long experiment where a community of 50 to 200 people meet and learn and discuss about history, how to build public goods, how to rethink public goods, how to combine government, governance, and public goods. So that's what TftC was about. Typically, it starts with a conference, so that's very similar to the Network State Conference from Balaji, but much more what we call tropicalized for the reality of Brazil and the reality of emerging economies. And then from this comes like a lot of projects, and even within the IP community, many micro solutions have been created. So that's interesting. I'm pretty sure that if you go to the online page of the Kenyan government and you split all microservices, so let's say you take the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Transportation, Central Bank, and every single service you make a sort of a squad here. So let's say Kenyan government squad, and you try to rebuild everything like in that room. I'm pretty sure that you guys, in 1 month, you can rebuild the entire government. And once you have it, then you just ship it. And if you happen to have the luxury of having a piece of paper from the government to say, hey, all this is legit, you guys can run the show, that basically teaches you on a very small scale to build this, and then you start feeling very powerful because you say, hey, it's building a government is not the act of God. It's like a very straightforward function. It's an insurance business, right? So you have contributors and you insure against like a certain level of contingencies, and you can build this as a collective. So that's what it's about. There are pop-up cities all over the world. It all started in Zuzalu in Montenegro in 2023. Since then, there are tens of pop-up cities everywhere, and I'm particularly involved in pop-up cities in the global south. I highly encourage you to participate. There will be one in the 2nd edition in Zanzibar. It's called Zanzalu. It will be starting in the course of July. So it's a very interesting way to build this. And then once you're up to speed, that would be amazing if you guys could build one for Kenya as well and create like a Kenya pop-up city right after and lead this and gather change makers from East Africa, Africa, and even the rest of the world.
This is, when we were speaking yesterday, it was blowing my mind.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin, the idea of building your own currency, someone can just build their own currency. I think the first barrier you get in your head when you come across these ideas is, is this a scam or, how is this possible? So we're already like, there are things we don't question, like money is just like, why would you create your own money? We assume you need authority, government, and all those kind of things. But now, each of these people here probably has multiple tokens. And, it's just been 10 years or so, 15 years or so. So now we're talking about the idea of countries, building your own country. Do you guys see the commonality in that? So these are scary ideas. It takes a lot to adjust to this kind of thinking. But just the same way we meet Bitcoin the first time or crypto and DeFi the first time, and then you go away, then come back, and it just grows on you. And it would be the same here. But then the idea of, for example, currency, it's not obvious that there's frustrations with currency. You just know maybe you're lacking money, you're not getting jobs or such thing. But the idea of big frustrations with governance are real. We've had protests last year here, mostly the Gen Z young people. So these frustrations with government are real. And maybe this is something people could look into and question, And I don't know what material is out there to make it easier for people to understand the philosophies behind this. Right now, I just know Balaji's work. Personally, maybe it's because I haven't looked deeply into it. But are there people who are making it easy to onboard and to help people digest this?
Yeah, so first you can go to our X, Twitter and LinkedIn. So for a year now, we've been producing a lot of content, so maybe 50 newsletters, 50 podcasts on the network state. If at some point, by the way, you believe that there's one aspect that you feel very competent at or you would like to spread the word, you are more than invited to participate in our podcast. I would love to have more African and East African insights about what you guys are building in DeepIn, in DeFi, in protocols. So you're more than welcome. Usually, Balaji organizes on a yearly basis conferences. So they are called the Network State Conference. The first one was in 2023 in Amsterdam. It's recorded, it's open, it's on YouTube. You can check it. It's, I think, 10 hours long. My personal reading is that the first edition in 2023 was half bullshit projects and half serious projects. And then last year in Singapore, it was also like 10 hours. And my reading is that it was 80% serious projects, including our project in Zanzibar, and 20% not complete bullshit, like so-so projects. So the bar is raising. And by the end of the month, we will be launching what we call the Master app. So Tools for the Commons Master app. Master application.
Okay.
So that will be an environment where you can come in and we will have a full knowledge repository of everything we know about network states. So all conferences, teachings, playbooks, how to engage, how to meet with people, how to build. We'll also bundle our digital economic zones, so our own digital economic zones and also third-party special economic zones. So if you want to become a resident or build a business or incorporate or reincorporate a business or a DAO or a programmable collective, that will be available as well. And we'll also explain a lot about history, economics, and how it connects with the internet. So also, because it's important to understand context, because we can't be bullish about the network state if we don't understand the power, but also the limitations of the nation state. So we need to understand why we are in that room today. We need to understand why we are frustrated about economic policies. We need to understand how states were created in the first place and how they've been imported to Africa and to Latin America. And to understand the power of this, there's still some power of it. But we also need to understand the limitations. So all this will be available and we'll discuss a lot diplomacy. So how to technically build a network state. So this famous paper, hey, one country, two systems. So what is it all about? How can we craft this? What are the different ways to do it? And how can we convince governments to make these kind of deals?
All right, so I've come to the end of my many questions, but I'll just ask one last one, then we open it up to the team. What's the network state right now that you think is most farther along in fully becoming what they're working towards?
So I don't think there's any now, but there are encouraging trials. So as part of the encouraging trials, I would mostly highlight some special economic zones with a high degree of autonomy and that are increasingly welcoming innovative software, internet, blockchain, crypto innovations, and that are starting to interconnect them with other projects. So one interesting node is Prospera in Honduras. One interesting node under development is Itana it's about an hour from Lagos. There's an upcoming development that's quite promising in Sierra Leone as well. We have very, very early stage developments in Brazil, but I think it's not here, it's not there yet. And Kazakhstan is doing like a very interesting job as well with special economic zones. But I think we need to create an industry, we need builders to come together and to really prototype and execute this business plan, and to have like 1 node, 2 nodes, 3 nodes, 5 nodes, 10 nodes, 50 nodes, 500 nodes, with many carve-outs and spin-offs, and forks. So one forking with another one, another merging with another one, another interacting, interoperating with another one, because I think, to me, that's the next United Nations. It won't be like a big table in New York where everybody has its flag and its binary, you have your seat or you don't have it. I think it will be like networks. And then we will use the United Nations countries just to sign this paper of, hey, you guys are legit. I mean, you can operate like a parallel state on my behalf. It's exactly the same way of, or the same logic of having Bitcoin as a strategic reserve for your central bank and as a legal tender, for instance. That's the first piece of paper guaranteeing your interoperability. So if we can clone and create an entire digital twin for every single UN country, then we could have horizontal interoperability, so all network state interoperating, and that's very easy, with bridges and wrappers. And then also all connected with an existing constitution of an existing nation state. And then network states and nation states would basically become completely interoperable, and we'll probably see like a massive migration from nation state citizens to network state citizens, in the same way that we saw like a lot of customers of traditional banks migrating to PayPal and then Bitcoin. So these are the more encouraging examples, but we're missing a playbook. So that's why I'm
actually sorry. I know you mentioned Zanzibar there as well. Like from the conversations we've had, how far along are you in talks with the nation state there?
So it's signed already. So it's been signed in December. The zone is live. So the zone exists. And we had a private launch of our, what we call DAS. So it's a digital access zone. So that's our online environment to interact with the zone. So this had a private launch, and we are waiting now for the public launch. And for the public launch, we need to have at least one more board meeting to approve the set of procedures, and so that the government can sign off on the procedures with minor details, as detailed as what day of the month should you pay taxes, can you have a discount on your taxes, in which bank account are you going to pay the taxes to the government, in which ledger do you register KYC, KYB, do you use ZK or not, how do you use ZK? So like these kind of procedures, we have like a full playbook of this, and we have to approve this, and once it's approved, possibly in the next couple of days or weeks, then we can have the public launch, but you can try this out already. You can access assets.toolsforthecommons.com. You can play with this. I apologize for the front end that sucks now on V1, but we'll have V2 live by the end of the month. V2 will be like very, very good. And you can be among the first Kenyan residents in the zone and try this out.
All right, awesome. So I want to invite questions from our friends. I know Chiza, you have questions?
Yeah, thank you. So last year we managed to attend Zanzalu for a couple of, I think, personally I was able to make it for a week. And it was really interesting. I really enjoyed the whole concept. It was new to me. I didn't realize that such I think will happen. And what actually intrigued me was a team that was working on longevity. And I mean, it made me realize like such innovations cannot be iterated just anyhowly. You need like a special kind of environment, as you put it, where you can actually like test it, and people can be able to realize the benefits. So my question will be, I believe now this for the network states to work, there's the need of having them in special economic zones. In the case of, let's say, like where Fumba Town is in Tanzania, it's more or less of a designated special economic zone. So how normally do you people approach the governments, and how do you explain to them these concepts in regards to the network state, and how normally do they respond to these new ideas that you try to share to them?
Sure. So I think there's the layer one argument and there's the layer two argument. So layer one argument is more like an economic argument. So it's more, let's say Zanzibar, for instance. Hey, Zanzibar, you uplifted significantly your economy, mostly based on tourism. We saw this during COVID, like it's also quite vulnerable. So with a few contingencies, basically your entire GDP can go to hell. And at the same time, like the digital GDP is like skyrocketing. So how do you balance better the economy? And Zanzibar is lucky, it's a beautiful place, very nice people. So we can say, I think people would be very happy physically and are already physically going to visit the island. Mostly in the south, so Ubunja, right? So what we say is, okay, there's no way that on a full-time basis you get 1 million great entrepreneurs. But maybe on a part-time basis you can have them, they're already here, but they are kite surfing. You know? They're not building their businesses, and they're on their computer, basically. So why don't you capture at least a piece of this? And because they already picked Zanzibar as a cool lifestyle, as a place where they are on their computers, sometimes they do their offsite there. Say, take their entire company, because why should those guys pay fees in Delaware while they never went to Delaware? Many of them, they're not even American, you know? And they like 10 times better than to hang out with people and to work, you know, in Zanzibar. So like capture this value, like climb the value chain. So no way you get 1 million great physical entrepreneurs full-time, but you can definitely have like 1 million digital entrepreneurs paying taxes. You know? So diversify the economy, take this ride. And then there's this more second, as we were discussing, reclaim sovereignty. So you know, when the consortium and our partners at Our World and Threefold, when they explained Samia, the president of Tanzania, what it was about, you know, the layers of the internet, how computing power works, how network connectivity works, how data storage works, she was shocked. And she called national security and said, like, is it serious? And they say yes. And all of a sudden you stop discussing whether taxes are high or taxes are low, because it's national security. So you need to fix it immediately. You know, it's like urgent matter. And then there's no politics in this. It's national security. So that's argument number two. So infrastructure and national security. So number one, economic opportunity. Number two, national security and sovereignty. And number three, when we discuss those upper layers, like ex Vitalia, now called Infinita. Then it's also a way to get like extra income, because that's a new kind of medical tourism. And for this, like many countries, like they help with very bad policies. That's the case of the US with the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration. And even, I mean, for instance, I grew up in France, so I can tell this for France. For instance, the pharma lobby is very, very strong. So the market and the state has no incentives whatsoever to keep you in good health. Like nobody, not the market and not the state, make more money when you're healthy. It's actually the opposite. They make more money when you're sick because they can sell you medicine. So it's like a very perverse incentive. You don't have any success factor. Like nobody's getting richer because you are getting healthier. That's quite the opposite. And also they don't want competition. And like if we would have like competition, for instance, the COVID drug would have been prototyped, delivered, and shipped in 2 weeks. It was really 2 weeks after the Wuhan infection. But because of lobbyist pharma, it had to be Bayer and Pfizer and like those big labs because they wanted to control the market. So and it's a serious things like hundreds of thousands of people died because of this. It's like really serious things. When you look at average life expectancy in the US, it's falling half a year every year for 15 years in a row. It was 82 years, now it's 75, and it's heading towards 62. So there are like perverse incentives, and one of the reasons for this is that for every $1 billion invested in R&D with R&D public funding, 25 years ago, you had between 10 and 15 drugs delivered. Now you have 0.7 drug delivered per $1 billion spent. And the average cutoff in the US to deliver a new drug switched from 1 year to 12 years. And the average budget to prototype a drug, like median, because this is the average, when you take the median, it switched from 330 million to 3.7 billion. And the only way to prototype a new drug is to have access to 3.7 billion, and it's only the federal government that is basically funding this, and they are only funding 5 companies. So it's a monopoly. And as a public good, I think health is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, public good. So it's the biggest individual and collective sovereignty. That's life, right? So that's why it's like a very interesting layer too. And when you look at health spending, it's also a lot of money. And states layer 0, they can also make a lot of money with this kind of new tourism. So that's the kind of narrative.
Amazing. Dalmas.
Okay, thanks for that. I can say this is the first time that I've had, not the first time, but rather the first time I've had like an explanation deep into network states. And the first time that one was flying over my head. Mine is more of a comment, but maybe a question. I don't know whether you have heard of Anycointer parachain on Polkadot. That was the first time I heard of such a thing. So with the Anycointer parachain, they were like a proof of personhood and also creation of local communities with local currencies. So when you have your own community, you sort of create your own currency, and then with that currency, you can use the currency to do some economic stuff, maybe buying services from each other, but within a limited area. By then, we tried to execute our own community here in Kenya that was called Miliki. But then it was really hard because it wasn't clear for us. But I believe with this kind of approach, the network states approaching it from the digital side, it makes things more easier and also more open to all to join. It is not limited to only people in a given place, and also it doesn't require somebody to create their own currency per se to do given economic stuff. For Anycointer, it was sort of different. You had to create your own currency, and now the currency wasn't linked to any of the currencies. For example, it's not linked to the Kenyan currency, meaning it's sort of floating on the air. So that was like a complete bridge broken between the two, making it hard for us to understand through. Maybe I can give it a try. Join you in Zanzibar next, that's July, and learn more from it.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can try to bridge this one to starting with Zanzibar, for instance. So maybe we can make a wrapper on top of this. So like the V1 has been developed on the Polygon network. So if there's any wrapper, existing wrapper on this, we can interconnect them. If there's not, we can build one, and very soon we might be Solana compatible, Ripple compatible. So we might be on the XRP ledger. Actually, we have an ex-Polkadot app chain that is one of our investors. It's called TftC. So yeah, so we are used to app chains and parachains and wrappers. So I'm sure you're already able to build this. So most of those projects, when they fail or when they don't find a good use case, it's not because of technology. It's because we have like God level technology. The problem is like mindset, and it's interoperability. So sometimes I like to joke that yeah, most of the time I'm the most stupid person in the room, and I like this. It's because like I'm in a very good room, you know. That the opposite is a big problem, you know. So, but I think what my contribution to the crypto world is that I'm terrible about crypto. I'm always the most stupid person with crypto, you know, and that's good. But what I think I understand well is like context and people. And we are missing in the industry people who understand diplomacy, who understand history, and mostly who understand people. Because I think we are relying way too much on code and way too little on people. And it's all about people, you know. You can create wonderful communities. Look at and take any extremist view aside, but like look at Israel, for instance. Israel is a very interesting case, and Israel didn't need the internet to create, you know, like a Jewish state. So if you think about it, it predates the internet of having people from all over the world that share the same story, basically, and the same religion, and then they decide to basically find the land, and you know, and to create their state. No internet. And by the way, the internet now makes it even like a stronger state, and also with all the debates and possible criticism that come along. But I think what the Jewish people has been very strong at is like to have like a strong sense of community and to maintain this all over the world. So that's why I'm very bullish on diasporas. I'm very bullish on religions, both any kind of religion. So it can be monotheisms, it can be multi-gods, it can be upcoming religions, and I think there will be like a very strong new religions in the 21st century. I think we need new religions. And when you build a religion, your lines of codes is useless. And that's what we learn a lot when I've been studying now this for 2 years now of how to build new cities, how to build new countries. I knew nothing about this. And lines of codes are the least interesting thing you need to know. What you need to know about like a country is a story. A country is just like a story. So like maybe an excellent network state founder would be a Marabout, for instance. A Marabout would be like an imam or a priest would be like a very strong network state founder because they could put a community together with shared value. So that's this kind of approach, but we need to be more creative. We need to find new religions like this. And then when you want to build a city, it's not about code. Like people move from one city to another one because number one, jobs. So it's all about job. So you move for economic prosperity. So that's why we need to create this economic zone, because if you have more companies and you'll have more jobs, right? When it's not jobs, it's education. So people are chasing education, but I think the future of education is also very interesting because there's a social component and there's a knowledge component. Knowledge is on the internet. So now I think there will be like methodology, knowledge, and social. So maybe in between those three, like there's the education. And last is security. Usually when you have wars in a specific place or when you have like just walking on the street is just very dangerous. That's the third reason why people move from one place to the other one. So that's why you need to know, like build appealing stories, package well those stories, and national stories are very, very poor. Like when you study like history, like Mesoamerica, the pre-national cities and the commercial cities in Africa were like much more prosperous, than modern cities. When you study like the Roman Empire, when you study like the Silk Road, like humanity has been much, much, much better and much more interconnected, and in many places of the world, much more prosperous than our current national games. Like I think now we have like a flag, an anthem, an army, elections, bureaucrats. I think like the leaders, of the Silk Road or like the pre-national like city-states in Africa, I think those like much more powerful stories. So I think we need to be more creative to build more appealing stuff.
Awesome. So we'll take last question from Anthony. Cameraman also.
Okay. I think the concept of network states is a really great idea. And having been to Zuzalu last year, Derek, it was really, you have to see it to believe it. Though the major challenge, I guess we like notice is how does network states evolve to like curb against the growing inequality between like the network state itself and the surrounding community, because maybe there is the economic inequality challenges. I think you've mentioned Bitcoin on Honduras. I think that was a huge challenge that popped off.
Yeah. So I think the legal part is very important. So the difference between a Discord group and a network state is diplomacy. It's like, do you have a counterparty, like a traditional national state and national market, that recognizes you as an equal entity to transact diplomacy and values, So I think if we take the example of Prospera, they've been stellar about building very powerful laws. If you look the regulations, they can literally do whatever they want except migrations, which is very powerful, I think, for a first test. But I think they've been very bad at story, because building a country is about a story. So when people went to the United States, it's not because the Constitution was the best in the world. It's because like the narrative was the best in the world. Like people were and are still risking their life because of the American dream. So you can be nobody, come from anywhere in the world, get there and work very hard, and then make a living and access prosperity irrespective of your background. That's the dream that 300 million people followed from any kind of ethnicity in the world. So that's a powerful story. And at the same time, you need to wrap that story, sell this story, and also making it very compelling for local people as well, so that it becomes extremely desirable. And Prospera, and even I think Morasan has been doing a slightly better job, but I think their story, it took them a long time to create a story. And by the time they created the story, it was probably too late with the opinion, because average Honduran, it's either they're directly connected and then they work for the zone, or they know someone who worked for the zone and they find it cool and then they support it, or they are neutral about it, they don't have like a special opinion, or they get manipulated by politicians that talk very, very bad, because now it's a very extreme left government. So obviously they don't like these kind of liberal approaches. And I think like a good antidote to this would have been to create like a much better story, to make it much more appealing, much more apparently inclusive. And they didn't make it, and now they are paying, I think, a very expensive PR price for this, and even legal price for this.
Our director John also has a question.
I just wanted to know which is the most successful network state, and why? Besides the story, like what made that one so, like, yeah,
Probably
successful?
no. Probably no one. I mean, an internet version, no one. I think the most powerful internet proxy is Bitcoin, but it's not a network state. It's very far from a network state. So I think the most powerful network is Bitcoin, and the most powerful nation state stories are, I mean, let's just look at GDP. So like in the United States, if we look at just the playbook and we take any internet aspect out, probably Israel is quite interesting, quite powerful. If we take more like the economic approach, certainly China with Chinese economic zones. If we look at it from a percentage perspective, certainly the Middle East. Like in the Middle East, special economic zones represent 85% of GDP. In China, it's 50%. In India, it's 15%. So this would be like the best special carve-out governance with a strong execution and strong narrative, but predating the internet. And then we have like a very powerful internet network. That's Bitcoin. But it's not a country. It won't be a country. It hasn't been designed to be a country. It's like a peer-to-peer cash system and cash payment. So I think it has to be built. It's just the beginning of the industry, and we need like people like you, like us, to make this happen, and to bundle the best of all of those worlds, to basically detach zip code from governance, and to create this abundant opt-in and out mechanisms.
Okay, one finally. So which one do you admire the most or you see as the most promising?
From an internet perspective or irrespective of the internet?
Just in general, like based on the whole setup.
I think religion. So probably the church, and probably Islam. I mean, just look at the numbers. So I think the church is 1 billion, Islam is 1 billion. So probably, I mean, yeah, Buddhism is pretty strong. Confucianism is okay, but I think it's pretty far from any kind of state structure. I mean, not the nation state, obviously, but I think like monotheisms, yeah, I think the three monotheisms are the best stories that have been built, sometimes in the form of a state, sometimes in other forms, like a more implicit power. But I think this is by far, and now the internet, so Bitcoin. So maybe I would say the three biggest monotheisms and Bitcoin. I think these are like the top 4 stories of the past 2,000 years. Yeah.
Last question. Jerry.
So, hi, my name is Njeri. Nice to meet you. And my question is, how do I get started with these tools for commons?
Probably LinkedIn. So, I mean, for us, our product now is very simple. So it's the digital access zone. So it's again assets.toolsforthecommons.com. It's very simple UX. If you want to know more about the industry and know more about the perspectives, probably my personal X or LinkedIn, I try to post every single week interesting stuff. The tools for the commons, LinkedIn and X also. We have a newsletter, we have podcasts. About the industry, again, like the Network State Conference is quite interesting. You can watch a few videos from the Chartered Cities Institute. I'm part of a few think tanks, so I produce a lot of content as well. And we'll gather all this by the end of the month in our master app product. So you'll have like a new Tools for the Commons login in 3 weeks from now. Welcome to the Network State. And you have like everything you need to know about like playbook, communities, knowledge, digital economic zones, diplomacy, economics. So there will be like this repository. And pop-up cities. So that includes also pop-up cities. If you want to leave this, I highly recommend the experience. Considering you like this, so I think you need to like, history, technology, anthropology. You need to like people. You need to like people living together. If you don't like people, don't get into the network state. Stay with traditional crypto. It's much better, because I think a computer will bother less than a people. But if you're more like a people person and a nerd at the same time, I think the network state is a very good blend.
Awesome. I think with that, we can call it a session. Or did you have a question, Cecilia? All right. So thank you very much, Hugo. We'll try and get the word out as much as possible to the rest of the community, and also beyond community, really. Because I think this sort of ideas are what helps people onboard onto blockchain even. We were talking with Ochi yesterday. We were saying the idea of a network state is amazing. For Africa especially, the idea that you don't have to take things as given and that you're locked in for life to certain ways of life, just giving hope to yourself and to your future. And these new ideas sort of help us be able to deliver the promise of Web3, really. And so it's amazing, and we thank you for visiting us and sharing your knowledge. And we'll check out the resources you mentioned. And hopefully a few months from now, or a year from now, the community will be bigger, and you'll have gotten a few interesting, brilliant minds trying out these experiments thanks to this. So thank you very much. And thank you, Johnny, our director. Thank you. Oh, okay, sure.
I wanted all of you to pardon us for interrupting the session earlier. So just pardon us kindly.
Oh, yeah. So thanks for your time.
Actually, these guys are in an incubator right now.
Okay, good.
So they're apologizing for interrupting, but it's okay, Caleb. It's all good. That's what the lab and hub is for. It's
open space.
It's an open space. Yeah. So thank you. So Johnny, thank you. Thank you, Chiza. Thank you, Dalmas, for your questions. Anthony as well. Thank you for being assistant on the camera. Awesome. So Johnny, we can wrap it up there.